I got to talk about this woman that dated only far-right men for a year because I think it's crazy. And I also think it like dovetails nicely into the Gen Z women are choosing older men over the guys their own age. And it's not because they are sugar daddies from the New York Post. So let's move on to some more fun a more fun space now.
Tony O'Sullivan got in the cage with former UFC star turned podcaster Jake Shields to explore the manosphere and why exactly it's so popular.
They speak liberal, they have liberal friends, and then they
explore the manosphere and why exactly it's so popular.
They speak liberal, they have liberal friends, and then they go online and they are a white supremacist.
This is Vera Papasova. She spent the last year dating far-right men in New York City for a story for Cosmopolitan magazine.
They're the most insecure men I've ever sat down with.
Yeah, no shit.
It was really difficult to have some of these dates because they were so insecure, because they don't really know who they are and they don't know how to figure that out.
She said the men she dated got all their news and information from the so-called manosphere.
They did not listen to anything else. They're only listening to independent.
Bro, I'm going to be honest. This is also a part of the vibe shift that I've been talking about. Okay. This is also a part of the vibe shift that I've been signaling, that I've been talking about as well. I see a lot of TikTok posts nowadays absolutely ripping apart these ugly ass manosphere podcasters that get their rocks off being horrible to women in general. They're like, you just gotta be ruthless. You gotta tell a hoe she's a whore. Yeah, like that kind of shit. Scaring the hoes.
Media, and they're only listening to men talking to men.
The manosphere is made up of macho podcasters and influencers.
There's no such thing as an independent female.
Most women have zero concept of like money.
Females don't have independent thought.
It's a space where UFC fighters are among those who reign supreme.
They love the UFC guys. They love the MMA guys because those guys do what they can. They're modern gladiators. They're badass.
Badass like Jake Shields, a former UFC star turned podcaster.
Sorry. Now I'm starting to feel nervous. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Who I met at an MMA gym in Las Vegas.
Like all great MMA pros. I've never hit anyone in my life.
I'm not punching back. Hit me. No, I sit right here. KO, KO, KO.
This is CNN. Do you miss being full-time pro, like in terms of?
Yeah, you know, of course I miss it. To go from professional athlete, which is the highest of highs, to retirement.
And I guess the
podcast has helped. You could fall into depression if you just go from the most amazing career where you're famous and spotlights to all of a sudden you're a nobody.
Sure.
Like other podcasters in the manosphere,
Jake Shield, by the way, is 100% an anti-Semite. Like, this is another one of these guys that I'm talking about, just so you know.
Regularly hosts controversial guests.
And I named the podcast Fighting Back. I feel like we have to fight back what we're told we're allowed to do. I just don't like to be told you're not allowed to talk to this person. Like, why can't I talk to him? I'm not saying I agree with his ideology, but I should hear what he has to say.
He's hosted the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Today I have a very, very special guest, Dr. David Duke. I know you're controversial, but I know you.
Yo, what the oh my God. Oh, that's awesome. That's so funny. He's like, oh yeah, controversial guy, Jake Shields. Very special guest today, Adolf Hitler. That's right. What's up, guys? I have a very special guest today, Dr. Mengele.
Ideology, but I should hear what he has to say.
He's hosted the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Today I have a very, very special guest, Dr. David Duke. I know you're controversial, but I have no idea how controversial.
And Tom.
Yeah, you're telling me this guy is anti-Semitic? Stop.
Thomas Russo, the leader of the white supremacist group Patriot Front.
Let's go where we disagree a little bit.
Yes, sure.
Let's hit race, because you're a white-only group?
So the organization only allows people of American ethnicity, and all Americans, I believe, come from Europe, so they're white.
The true air of the American spirit.
God, these guys are so pathetic, dude. Oh my God. Americans only come from Europe. Oh, shut up, bitch.
Fight on! You know, I understand and talk to these guys, but I've also not brought anyone hateful. If I do,
Like, think, dude, think it thoroughly, okay? Think through your statement. In my estimation, Americans only come from Europe. Okay. It's weird.
I'm going to be really, really on top of them.
But so you saying that you haven't brought someone hateful on, right?
Uh-huh.
People say, well, you brought on
Yeah.
a Grand Wizard of the KKK, you brought on Patriot Front.
Yeah.
They're hateful.
No, I think those are excellent questions, but if people go and watch the actual interviews, I think they would be like, oh, this guy's not near as hateful as I thought. If
Oh, Jesus Christ. Hasan, you've said there's journalistic integrity in interviewing literally anybody. Yeah, dude. You think the Grand Wizard of the KKK is going to be interviewed in the same vein? Yes, I think that there is value. There's journalistic value in talking to someone even like David Duke. Okay? Under very unique circumstances, for the record. He's literally like, yeah, this guy's, he's just nowhere near as hateful as you think. He's talking about the Grand Wizard of the KKK. Now, that's one thing. The other thing is, you might also say, Hasan, you say this, but then you also don't talk to Nick Fuentes or people like that. There's a reason for that. Because I live in the United States of America, where white supremacy is so captivating for, unfortunately, many people, which is precisely the reason why I do not ever want to extend a lending hand, even if I am being critical. Even if I am being critical of them, I feel like having a conversation with someone like that ends up giving them a lot more, even if their arguments get thoroughly dismantled, right? Like this person says, you did debate Nick, though. Exactly. It was, I think, one of the worst moments of my career in general was that he snuck into that conversation. It was me and Sex Pestiny on one side, back when he wasn't like a weird right-wing sociopath himself, and before we knew his sex pest ways in general. And he snuck into that conversation because it was supposed to be with Blair White, and it was a terrible idea. It's something that I have deep shame for. I think it was horrible. It doesn't matter if you dunk on Nick Fuentes, you're still giving him a platform that he never ever would have gotten. Do you regret the Andrew Tate convo? No, I don't regret the Andrew Tate convo, because Andrew Tate had already reached a level of prominence by the time I talked to him, with very little pushback up until that point. Like, there was no there. Like, do you understand the difference? Like, of a guy who is, first of all, straightforwardly a neo-Nazi. Andrew Tate has said a lot of anti-Semitic Holocaust denial too. Now, he hadn't back then, but it doesn't even matter. Andrew Tate already had reached maximum level of popularity and had not gotten a single ounce of pushback up until that very moment. It's ironic because I feel like that was the first domino that fell for him anyway, because since then, his, after his skyrocketing to success, he kind of fell apart.
If I expect it.
But Vera says hate isn't what the men she dated were really looking for.
One of these guys brought me to a political meeting.
And did they talk about politics?
Barely. They talked about, it was a bunch of men complaining about girlfriends and wives, regurgitating Andrew Tate type of advice about how to train your girlfriend, how to train your wife to be submissive. And so this group was supposed to be a political group, but they're talking about relationship problems. And the fact that that's what most of the time was spent on, you don't need to be a neo-Nazi. You need therapy.
The appeal of Jake's podcast speaks.
Also, Andrew Tate is kind of a dumbass when met with real pushback like you gave, whereas Nick is especially sinister because he's fairly eloquent and makes groyper converts from his appearances. Nick's just a cancer. You just need to just attention starve. Yeah.
To a need among young men in this country that Vera...
It's evidenced by the fact that regardless of being a horrible monster, a genocide defender, and an overall sex pest, and a huge Zionist, Destiny is a decent debater. And all of his back and forth with Nick Fuentes only benefited Nick Fuentes' career. And he knew that too, by the way. He talked about how he elevated Nick Fuentes' career famously, if you guys recall. Remember when he complained about how Nick was giving him too much pushback despite the fact that he had actually put him on the map. His own words, by the way. Sex Pestini's own words, not mine. All of this, like all the way from Andrew Tate or any number of different like light right-wing accounts, all the way down to like the worst of the worst, the Jake Shields and the Nick Fuentes of the world. Like they all are on the same pipeline. Why are you so cruel towards broken men? I'm not. A broken man has the opportunity to fix himself and become a better person. I'm cruel to those who make it everybody else's problem. I'm cruel to broken men who, in their broken male status, turn around and attack everybody viciously.
Vera says can't be ignored.
You have to incentivize someone to want to be better. You can't just say, let's make men better. The thing about these guys is their biggest support system is online, but that also is very isolating, and isolation is what breeds hatred.
Groups like Patriot Front offer community, but community based on racism and hate.
People have to really think about, do you have the capacity to talk to people that you don't agree with? Because that one nice conversation you might have might change someone's day enough to not have to seek out help in an online support group, which is actually a bunch of white supremacists using political beliefs as an excuse for how they feel.
Tony O'Sullivan is here.
Asman is pretty isolated. Brother, I've tried to reach out to him many times, as you know. Don't act like, I mean, people yelled at me so much. It'd be like, why are you so charitable to Asman Gold?
With us now,
here
Donnie,
we
I'm so
are.
glad you've done this special. There's so much intrigue around this issue of the manosphere. And in fact, Trump is going to the UFC tonight. How big of a role does the sport play in the manosphere?
Hey, Isabel, yeah, and look, we should point out at the start here, there's tons of guys who are fans, and some women as well, who are fans of the UFC. I have many friends who are fans of the UFC. It certainly does not mean, you know, that if you are a fan of the UFC, you are falling sort of down this rabbit hole of hate and white supremacy and everything else. But what we are seeing is that there is this sort of, there is this crossover. The UFC is playing a greater and bigger role, really, in American life. Joe Rogan, who's the world's biggest podcaster, is a UFC commentator. Dana White, who is the founder of the UFC, is a prominent Trump supporter and was recently appointed to the board of Meta by Mark Zuckerberg himself, another big MMA and UFC fan. And actually fighting tonight in Miami, Trump is going to the event. We're not sure if he'll be there for the earlier fights, but fighting tonight in Miami at the UFC event is a fighter by the name of Bryce Mitchell, who recently set up a podcast of his own, and on his debut episode a few months ago, he said that Hitler was a quote-unquote good guy or a great guy. Dana White, the head of the UFC, was quick to condemn that, but you know, you can just kind of see there where folks who might be coming into this sport for one reason are a fan of fighting, and then they're getting exposed to views like Bryce Mitchell's.
Andrew Tate is currently living on borrowed time. The once self-proclaimed top G is looking more and more desperate with each passing day, scrambling to hold on to whatever influence he has left. From pump and dump crypto schemes to literal pyramid schemes. Over the past few years, he's used every scummy tactic he could think of to maintain his image of a successful man. Unfortunately for Andrew, the walls are closing in faster than he can react. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries and
Gen Z boys like the idea of being an appearing mask. The UFC MMA got some of the most yoked guys whose entire job is to appear hyper masculine. That's why it's so easy for them to just make a career saying the craziest shit. They have the excuse that they're only the true mask guys. Yeah, I had this conversation with Steiny, ironically enough. I had this conversation with Steiny where, like, I said something that I've been saying quite a bit, but it's like, no matter how much you work out, no matter how much you fight and you know, put your body on the line, put your life on the line, like, only weak men, only insecure and weak men actively put the crosshairs on those who are vulnerable. That's it. That's it. Like, you can be the strongest dude of the UFC, but to me, the moment that I see you talking about people who have been ruthlessly on. Wait, you said Asman. This guy said Asman is way better than you. Okay, hold on. Here it is. I unbanned him. And the response from Sonny Adriano was this tweet. Is dried blood from when my teeth would bleed overnight. I just wipe it on the wall when I woke up so I didn't have to get out of bed. Hasan unbanned a triggered Asman Tate fan. If anything, the more physically strong you are, the more you need to show that you are gentle and be aware of how you are. You have that natural intimidation and physical advantage. True masculinity is being a gentle, giant, protector type. Yeah, that's why I think it's so funny whenever people like stress the fact that I dressed up in a maid outfit. Like whenever they're like, dude, I can't believe you did that. It's like, yeah. Did it change my stature? No. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid of doing shit like that because I'm not a baby. A lot of people mistake being alpha with confidence. Okay, what they think is when they say you got to be alpha, what they mean is you have to be confident. And it's ironic because or when they say you have to be masculine, what they're talking about is being confident. And it's funny because these guys are the most insecure people. That's why they put on a farce. They put on a show. That's why they are so desperate to present themselves as something that they are not. They are lacking. They're lacking in this area. They are sexually insecure. They're insecure of their own sexuality. They're insecure about the way that they are perceived. That's why they try to actively present themselves as like big, burly, macho men. That's why they also have this like crazy reaction when I wear pearls or paint my fingernails. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, dude, you're so gay. My Gen Alpha kids say Sigma all the time. What does that mean? It's more so a meme in Gen Alpha at this point. What the Sigma? That's it. How can I be more confident? I'm extremely insecure and it shows all the time and I'm so tired. Well, first of all, it's because you're insecure that you think it shows that you're insecure to other people. It most likely doesn't. You're talking to someone who is too insecure to wear glasses, both sunglasses and just regular glasses, for most of his life. Okay. When I was in high school, I literally couldn't even wear a hat or glasses. I've talked about this before. And the reason why I couldn't wear a hat or glasses was because I thought people would fucking look at me whenever I wore glasses outside, sunglasses. People would look at me and go, look at this fucking loser. Why is he wearing sunglasses? That's how fucking insecure I was. That's how insecure I was. I couldn't even wear sunglasses, dude. I couldn't even wear a hat. I was worried that people would fucking say, why is this guy wearing a hat? Now, what helped me get over that was, I guess I basically trained myself when I went outside. I looked at my own interaction with other people around the world. Okay? Because you weren't making money and it affected you more? What are you talking about? I'm talking about in high school, man. The fuck? What money making are we talking about? Some of y'all are so lost in the goddamn sauce. I can't even talk about fucking insecurities that I experienced growing up without people being like, nah, it's the money that saved you. No, I was a very confident person when I was dead fucking broke. It's just I grew up. And I'm going to explain to you how I worked through this. Okay? Let me tell you how. And you can take this home with you. Take it to the bank. When you go outside, do you notice other people wearing glasses? Do you notice other people wearing sunglasses? No, of course not. You don't. Because everyone's worried about their own shit. Why the fuck? It would be really weird if when you went outside, if you were looking at people and like what kind of glasses they were wearing and going, why is that guy wearing sunglasses? No, you immediately go, I don't give a shit. You don't even think about it. I trained myself into realizing that like it's in my mind. It's me. I think everyone is looking at me. No one is looking at me, just like I'm not looking at them. Everyone's worried about their own shit. Even if I notice someone wearing glasses, I don't care. That's how it works. And as far as like gaining confidence goes, that's one way that you can figure out whether or not your insecurities are just like completely fucking your insecurities are just in your own mind, and that constant fear that other people are noticing your insecurities is unironically clouding your judgment and also shaping your interactions with other people, which is why those interactions are nowhere near as positive as they could be. That's number one. And also, the way that you develop confidence is by setting goals for yourself and achieving said goals. That's why I always talked about in every Chad Vice the importance of setting long-term goals, midterm goals and short-term goals. Midterm goals that help you achieve those long-term goals and short-term goals that help you achieve those midterm goals. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. But the more you achieve goals that you set for yourself, long-standing goals that you set for yourself, the more confidence you build, because you recognize that you do have the power to change, to shape certain things that you have control over. That's it. That's what helped me become the person I am now. That's why I care so much about working out and training and always urge others to do so.